Hey everyone, C-Stan here with the Lord of the Rings The Living Card Game. Decided to take a little bit of a break with the playthroughs and do some card reviews. So I've put together my top 10 most hated treachery cards in the game. And we all know there's a lot, but I took some time and narrowed it down to my top 10 most hated. So these are cards that really define the game, and when you think about the just terrible effects that end your games all the time, these are the cards that do it. So I've generally gone with cards that can pretty much ruin your game completely if they turn up at the wrong time. There are certainly other cards that are frustrating or annoying, especially a lot of nightmare treachery cards, but I didn't put any nightmare cards in here. I think that's probably best left to a separate video of nightmare card reviews. So these are all standard play treachery cards, and in fact many of them are so bad that they get taken out for the nightmare versions of the same quests. They were just hated too much by the players that the designers just couldn't even bear to keep them in the nightmare version. Okay, so I'll start off here with my number 10, which is, it's definitely not the worst effect, and in fact there are probably worse encounter cards out here, but everyone knows this card, and that is the Necromancers Reach. Being a core set card, everyone has seen this come up in multiple games. There's 3 copies in the deck, and it really hits you hard that first time you ever play the game, because you don't know an effect like this exists. Deal 1 damage to each exhausted character. There are a lot of allies in the core set that just have 1 hit point. And if you committed to the quest with these allies, that's it, they're dead. Unless you can cancel it, of course, but you might not be ready for something like this. And even to this day, going back and playing the core set, this is a card that I keep an eye out for. I count how many I've seen, how many are in the discard, because you still want to know, is it safe to commit my character to the quest or not? He's only got 1 hit point left. Is he going to survive? It's really important to know that. And this sort of defines a whole class of treachery cards for the rest of the game. Many other similar effects exist in later quests, and it's almost so common that I'm a little worried to commit a character to the quest if they've got 1 hit point, unless I go and actually check the encounter card list to make sure there's no effect like this, because I guess just nightmares from this card. That is the Necromancer's Reach. This next card is from the Heirs of Numenor set, which is probably going to be a common theme here in this list, and that is Southron Support. This one hits you particularly hard in multiplayer, so let's read it. Doomed 3. When revealed, each player must search the encounter deck and discard pile for 1 Harad enemy and add it to the staging area. If able, shuffle the encounter deck. So, not only is everyone raising their threat by 3, but if you're playing a 3 or 4 player game, you've just got 3 or 4 more enemies in the staging area from a single card. That's just nuts. It's like Surge times 3 where they're all enemies. It's a terrible, terrible card, and I always hate seeing it. It is the card to cancel when you're playing a quest like this for sure. So that was my number 9, Southron Support. Number 8 is Watcher in the Wood. This card is also from the Heirs of Numenor set, so you might also want to cancel this one. Let's read it. So when revealed, raise each player's threat by the number of questing characters. If the current quest has the battle or siege keyword, Watcher in the Wood gains Surge. So this is an important point about this card, is you don't raise your threat by your amount of questing characters. Everybody raises their threat by the total number of questing characters. So if we're playing a 4-player game and each player has committed 3 characters, which is quite reasonable, then that means everybody in the game raises their threat by 12. And then, if it's a battle or siege, which it most likely is if you're playing Heirs of Numenor, you get a surge on top of that. So, as if a threat raise of 10 plus wasn't enough, you've got to deal with another card. And there are 2 of those in the deck. So if you get really unlucky, you could surge into the next one and then raise your threat by another 10. So definitely you want to be canceling this card for sure. Okay, that was my number 8. And my number 7 is the Master's Malice. Well, here we go with another card from the Heirs of Numenor set. When revealed, each player chooses one sphere of influence: spirit, tactics, a leadership, or lore. Each character controlled by the player that does not belong to this chosen sphere takes 3 damage. So this single card is what stops me from going back and playing Heirs of Numenor quests a lot. You really need a specific deck. It just totally obliterates often 2 or 3 sphere decks. It can take out your whole field of allies, or at least most of them if you've got multiple spheres across your allies. It kills a lot of heroes. There are a lot of heroes that have 3 or less hit points, especially hobbits. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be taking a hobbit deck here. Now again, this can be cancelled, but we've already seen 2 encounter cards from the Heirs of Numenor set that you have to cancel. So I don't think you're going to be, just overflowing with Test of Wills, waiting to cancel more cards. They're all going to be taken up. You are going to want to bring a monosphere deck to this quest so that this becomes sort of a non-issue, so that you can save your cancels for the ones that matter. And so, well, yes, it's possible that this card just does nothing if you built your deck right. It's hated by me because of that fact. You need a specific deck to avoid this card from taking its damage, and you can't kind of just build a fun deck, go back and try an Heirs of Numenor quest, because this thing just punches you in the face. Okay, so that was number 6. Or no, number 7. So my next card is actually a tie. So we've got 2 encounter cards that kind of do the same thing here. And the first is Wind Whipped Rain. When revealed, discard all non-treasure, non-objective attachments in play. And this card is from the Hobbit Overhill and Underhill. So if you haven't played this, there are new attachment types called treasure. So this basically means discard everything that's not a treasure or an objective from play. So any normal attachments like your steward, your shields, your weapons, absolutely everything that you've played on your characters at this point. This is a game ender. I don't know about other people, but my decks tend to have a lot of attachments, especially ones that you do not want to get rid of, like Steward of Gondor. and like Gondorian Shield, Blood, and Fire. They just discard all kinds of attachments. This is pretty much the worst attachment discarding effect, I think, that's printed in the game. There's a lot of other effects that make you discard items or mounts, but this just trashes everything on the board. So you definitely want to be canceling this too. So my other one that's tied for number 6 is Leaves on Tree. Sort of the same effect. When revealed, each player must pay 1 resource for each attachment he controls, or discard all attachments he controls. So oftentimes, I'm not floating with a bunch of resources, and I've used up all my resources for the turn, or maybe I have 1 or 2 left. But I definitely often have 3, 4, 5, 10 attachments in play, and there's no way I can pay 1 for all of them. And even if you can, you've just spent all your saved up resources just to keep your attachments that you've already played around. So it's effectively like increasing the cost you've paid for every attachment by 1. And on top of this, it surges. As if that wasn't bad enough. This is just terrible card. And the shadow effect is pretty bad too. Discard an attachment from the defending character. But I think if you see this as a shadow effect, you are relieved. Because this shadow effect does nothing near what the when revealed effect does. Okay, that's number 6. Number 5. We've got, we're starting to get into some cards that will just straight up take out your heroes. So we've got Sudden Pitfall from the Khazad-dûm Deluxe expansion. Let's read it. It's a hazard. When revealed, the first player must discard 1 questing character he controls. If able, this effect cannot be cancelled. So that's another thing. This effect cannot be cancelled. A lot of the worst cards on my list have this thrown in because there's no way to avoid them, like the other ones that may be worse, but you can kind of tech against them. There's nothing you can do to stop this. You are going to lose a questing character. The end. And if you're unlucky enough for this to turn up on the first turn when you don't have a questing ally out yet, you just lost your hero. And your game is over on the first turn. Pretty much. I don't know many decks that can survive losing a hero on the first turn. So, yep, this card has ruined many of my games. It's surprising. There's only actually 1 in the encounter set, but it has a tendency to be the top card of the deck way more than probability says it should be. Now let's look at the shadow. Discard the defending character from play. So now you've defended an attack with your super strong Boromir or Baragon with 100 defense. Well, he's dead. He's just removed from the game. And then the attack becomes undefended, and you've got to put that undefended damage on one of your 2 remaining heroes, most likely killing them too. So this shadow effect here has the potential for taking out 2 heroes in one go, and there are very few shadow effects that can match that. Okay, that's number 5, Sudden Pitfall. Number 4, we have another hero removing effect here, Lost and Alone. We get this card from the Foundations of Stone set. When revealed, each player chooses and shuffles a hero he controls into his deck. When he draws that hero, he puts it into play. So, well, you can cancel this. I put it as more hated than Sudden Pitfall, because this one specifically targets your heroes. You can't get rid of allies with this, and it targets every player. Every player has to lose a hero. So assuming this is not cancelled in a 4-player game, it just took out 4 heroes from the game. And so you lose those attachments as well, if they have any. Now, it's true they get shuffled in your deck and you can draw back into them, but you are going to be without your hero for several rounds. And even when you do draw into them, they won't collect resources on the turn they enter play, because that happens all during the single phase, at least I'm pretty sure. It might depend on the order of drawing and gaining resources, but regardless, you're going to be without your heroes for a few turns at least, assuming you've got good card draw. If you don't have good card draw, you might not see your hero for the rest of the game, or your teammates. So as a single treachery card that can take out 4 heroes, this one is definitely deserving of number 4. And just taking a look at the shadow, if the attacking enemy is nameless, the defending player must discard his hand. So they definitely didn't pull any punches with the shadow effect either. Now it can whiff if it's if the nameless isn't attacking you, if it's something else, but yeah, definitely better than the one revealed effect, but still pretty bad. And so that's number 4, Lost and Alone. Number 3, Orc Ambush. This is from the Road to Rivendell quest, and it says Surge, so already you're going to get another card. When revealed, all Orc enemies in the staging area engage the first player. If there are no Orc enemies in the staging area, return all Orc enemies in the encounter discard pile to the staging area if able. So this card has a tendency to either be pretty nice or absolutely devastating, just with an effect that is unlike any other I've ever seen in terms of what it can do. If you're doing well, which you should be, there won't be Orc enemies in the staging area, especially since this is the quest with the ambush mechanic, where the Orcs, when they enter play, they ambush you, and they don't really sit in the staging area for very long. So it's actually very likely that there is no Orc enemy in the staging area, and you're going to have to do this second effect, where you return all Orc enemies in the counter discard pile to the staging area if able. So what I hate about this card is that it's fine early on. There aren't going to be many Orc enemies in the discard pile. So when this really ends your game is after you've already invested an hour into the game and you're about to win, and you've already taken out 15 Orcs and they're in the discard pile, and then boom, they all come back and your staging area's got 15 Orc enemies in there, and then the card surges. You get another encounter card, as if the 15 Orcs weren't enough. And then you fail the quest, your threat goes up by 50. You've got to, if you for some reason don't threat out from that, you need to engage them all, and they're all going to attack you, and you're going to die. So that's number 3, Orc Ambush. Number 2 is maybe not deserving of number 2 in terms of how bad it is. I think it does, but what I really hate about this Treachery card is just how broken it is. So we've got the Power of Mordor. Doomed 3. Count the number of encounter cards in the staging area and shuffle them into the encounter deck. Then reveal an equal number of cards from the encounter deck and add them to the staging area. this effect cannot be cancelled. So at face value, it's not easy to see what is so bad about this card. Well, you can see what's so bad about the card, but maybe not what the reason I would put it at number 2. Doom 3, everyone raises their threat by 3. That's pretty bad. You've got to remove all the cards in the staging area and deal new ones. That's pretty bad, because you could end up with more if you reveal new cards that have Surge. Then effectively you're taking one card and replacing it with 2. So that's pretty bad. But for full appreciation of the terribleness of this card, you need to understand the scenarios that it's part of. So one of the scenarios it's part of is Siege of Kaer Andros. And in Siege of Kaer Andros, you start with 3 special locations in the staging area to begin the quest. And these are the Citadel, the Banks, and the Approach. And these 3 cards are special. So if you read them, they each have a response. And so I'll read this one here. After the Approach leaves play as an explored location, remove stage 3 from the quest deck, if able. So this quest has 5 stages in it. The first one is the one you start on, with these 3 locations in play. And then there's stage 2, 3, and 4, which are the intermediate stages, and they're all pretty bad. And then stage 5 is the last. But they give you this nice mechanic where if you explore these 3 locations, each one of them allows you to remove a stage from the quest deck so that you no longer need to go to that quest stage. So for example, if I travel and explore the Banks, then I get to remove stage 2 from the quest deck. That means when I finish stage 1, I get to skip stage 2 and go to stage 3. If I got lucky and managed to clear all 3 of these locations, I would go directly from stage 1 to stage 5 and avoid the worst parts of the quest. However, the power of Mordor, if it turns up, when those locations are still in the staging area, they have to be shuffled back into the encounter deck. You lose all ability to basically play the quest as it was intended. You can't count on those ever turning up again as encounter cards. They could end up as shadow cards. You could never draw them. And then when you advance, you're going to have to go through every single stage of the quest. And it just feels like that was not the intention of this card. This card, well, it's bad. It's bad enough as it is. I think it doesn't need to break the quest in order to have its effect to be realized. And then the other quest it's a part of is the Morgul Vale. And in the Morgul Vale, you have, again, a couple encounter cards that start in the staging area as special cards. One of them is this To the Tower objective. It says To the Tower cannot leave the staging area. And then there's a special unique captain enemy. And there's an effect on the quest card that says the captain enemy cannot leave play unless it's destroyed. So the To the Tower and the captain enemy, both of them cannot leave the staging area from the effect of Power of Mordor. So essentially what you're doing here is you're counting the number of encounter cards in the staging area. So at minimum that's going to be 2 because there's To the Tower and the captain enemy. And then whatever else is there, so let's say there's 2 locations and an enemy there. That's a total of 5. And you try to shuffle them all into the encounter deck. And you aren't able to shuffle To the Tower and the captain enemy back in. So you only shuffle 3 of the 5 back in. And then you have to reveal an equal number of cards. And that number is actually referring to the number you counted originally, not the amount you shuffled in. So you need to you need to reveal 5 more, even though you shuffle just 3 more into the deck. So this effect is again kind of broken with this specific quest. You've got to it kind of gives the intention of sort of refreshing the staging area with an equal number of cards, but really at minimum it's going to increase the number of cards in the staging area by 2. And odds are some of those are going to surge and you're going to get even more. So it just seems like a poorly designed card that ends up breaking the quests that it's a part of, and on top of that, it's terrible. Luckily, there's only 1 of these in the encounter deck, and you might see it as a shadow. So ideally, you're going to get it as a shadow. But otherwise, you're going to have to deal with it because it cannot be cancelled. Okay, that's number 2, the Power of Mordor. Number 1, I'm sure at this point, with only 1 card left, many of you can guess what I decided to put as number 1. And that is Sleeping Sentry. This is another Treachery card from the Road to Rivendell set. The other one was the Orc Ambush. But this is the card that I think defines bad Treachery cards. This is the card you think of first when you think of, at least that's the card I think of when someone asks me what is the worst Treachery card in the game. Let's read it. Sleeping Sentry, 1 revealed. Deal 1 damage to each exhausted character. Then exhaust all ready characters. So you're going into the travel and combat phase with absolutely nobody ready. How are you going to deal with the enemies? I don't know. On top of that, everyone who was on the quest was dealt a damage, and many of them likely died because they only had 1 hit point. And then to add insult to injury, everyone who you decided not to quest with is exhausted anyway. So this is bad, very bad, though I would say maybe not the worst when revealed effect in the game. But what makes this the worst overall Treachery card is the Shadow effect. Shadow. Defending player must discard all exhausted characters he controls. So there's really nothing like this. After the quest phase, many of your characters are exhausted. Then you go into the combat phase, you exhaust your defenders. So when the Shadow comes up, your defender is already exhausted. You just suddenly lose everyone you sent on the quest, because they're all exhausted. You lose your defender for this attack. The attacking enemy now makes an undefended attack against you, likely killing one of your other heroes. And I have seen this card just utterly wipe out every single card on a player's play area in one go, because they basically only had 1 defender and they defended with that character, so everyone was exhausted. This popped up. Well, it's happened to me too. And instantly, there's nothing left on the board. You're done. And as a card that showed up kind of early in the game, before the rest of these really nasty Treachery cards from later sets, this definitely raised the bar by a huge margin. And this is one of those cards that they actually took out for the Nightmare. Thankfully, it just makes it way too hard. And it takes my number 1 spot, because when I think of the Road to Rivendell quest, I think of the Sleeping Sentry quest. It's the quest with Sleeping Sentry. You need to be prepared for it. You need to have some way to deal with this card. You need Treachery cancellation and Shadow cancellation all in one. You need to keep track of where this card is in the deck, if it's in the discard, where both copies of it are. That's right, there are 2 copies at all times. And it's really what stops me from going back and playing the regular version of this quest. I do not want to deal with this card ever. So that's it. That's my top 10 most hated treachery cards in the game. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I missed one of your most hated treachery cards. There's a lot out there, and there's definitely a lot of newer ones as well that could easily make it into this top 10 list. So thanks for watching, and as always, happy questing.